Good day, students. Welcome to mathematics class. The topic for today is quadratic equation, and that's the continuation of the lesson we have started on quadratic equation. But this time around, we are solving quadratic equation using completing the square method. And don't forget, this is the format to which when you see this expression, you know that you have seen a quadratic expression or quadratic equation. Now, we have actually in our previous lessons, we have actually solved this particular question using graph and also using quadratic formula. So let's now solve using completing the square method. Now, these are the steps. The first step you should consider is now divide all terms by a. That means if s square, the coefficient of s square is more than 1, for example 2, then you have to ensure that you divide all through. What you are basically doing is that you want to make sure that the coefficient of x, the highest, is 1. The coefficient of x is 1, although you know that a cannot be what? 0. So the least and the highest is 1. Do you understand? So that's what we want to ensure in solving before we can actually solve using completing the square method. So you have to first of all divide all the terms by a, that is the coefficient of x2. Having done that, then you move the number term, which is the constant. C. For this now is 2. You move it to what? You move to the right hand side. You move it to the right hand side of the equation, and you take the square of half of b, which is, this is b, right? This is b. So in this case now, the coefficient of x is what? The coefficient of x is 3. Then you take the half of it, which is 3 over 2. You divide it by 2. Then you now square it. So which will give you what? B over 2 into bracket, close bracket, square. You understand? So then you complete the square on the left side of the equation and balance the equation by adding the same value to the right equation. So this is where the completing the square method is actually done. Whatsoever you have added to this particular equation on the right hand side, you have to add it to the what? To the left hand side. You have to add it to the right hand side also, because we have added b over 2 raised to power 2. Then you have to add that also. Then when you do that, you have actually make an expression completely square method. Then you take the square root on both sides. When you take the square root on both sides, you are left with a plain value. Then you have probably subtract or add. So that's basic steps. But let's now go into solving that particular question now. So this is the question: s squared minus 3x plus 2. That's the expression. Don't forget that we have to get to what? We have to get the root. Until you get the root, which probably could be positive or negative, you have not actually answered the question to the fullest. So x, what's the first thing for us to do? First of all, because now from the question, the coefficient of x squared is 1. So you don't need to do, or you don't need to divide anything, because if coefficient of x squared is 1 and you divide all through by 1, you will still get this value. So the next, you move it to the next step. The next step is to what? Is to move the number terms to what? To the right. So this is the number term, which is the constant. The constant is what? Is 2. You move it to the right hand side. So it becomes what? Minus 2. Then what do you do next? You find the coefficient of x, you divide it by 2 and you square the answer. So how do you do that? So we have the coefficient of x is 3. You divide it by 2 and you square. So we have x. So you now add it. You now add it to what? You now add it to the right hand side to the left hand side, you do the same thing to the right hand side. So that's basic things you should take note of. Square of binomial to form completing the square method. So this expression you are seeing, this expression you are seeing here, this expression you are seeing makes you solve this question using completing the square method. Without this, you have no actually, if you get this wrong, then it's very difficult for you to get the correct answer. So x squared minus 3x plus 3 over 2 all into square is equal to minus 2 plus 3 over. You can see that you have added this value to the left hand side, you have added it to the right hand side also. Then you now move to this step. Since you have added it to the other side, what do? If you square, take this square of 3 is 9, then the square of 2 is 4, that is 2 times 2 4, 3 times 3 giving us. So then the expansion, you do find the LCM, that is the LCM 4, then 4 in 1, that is 4 times 2 8 minus 8, 4 in 4 1 times 9 will give you what? Will give you 9. So minus 8 plus 9 will give you what? 1. So you have 1 over 4. But don't forget this by the time you do the factorization here, you have x minus 3 over 2 all square. X minus 3 over 2 square is equal to what? 1 over 4. This is the value we've gotten here. Then you take the square root of both sides. If you take the square root of both sides, you have actually eliminating the what? The power of 2. You are actually eliminating the power of 2. Then this one, we cut this one off. You are left with x minus 3 over 2 is equal to the square root. Taking the square root, the root 1 over 4 plus or minus root 1 over 4. Then you have 3 minus x minus 3 over 2 is equal to what? This. You are left with that. Then the square root of the root 1 over 4 will give you 1 over 2. So basically, you do the summation, the adding. This is where you do the adding and summation, and you have to be very careful. So what do? You want to make x the subject of formula, because the value we are getting is the value for x. So on this left hand side, x should be left alone. So how do we do that? Whatsoever things around x is being shifted, it's moved to where? To the right hand side. So how do you do that? You add this value that you want to move, which is minus 3 plus minus 3 over 2. You add 3 to both sides. So if we add 3 over 2 to both sides, this one cancel this, you are left with x. Then you have moved this plus or minus 1 over 2 plus 3 over 2. Then if you do the SAM, you have your what? This one cancel this now, so you have your x is equal to plus or minus 1 over 2 plus 3 over 2. Find your SM. You do what? X is equal to 1 over 2 plus 3 over 2 or minus. This positive or negative is telling you that the value could be what? Negative or could be positive. So or minus 1 over 2 plus 3 over 2. So find the SM. 2 here. 2 into 1 times 1 1. 2 into 1 times 3 3, or 2 into 1 times minus 1 will give you minus 1. 2 into 1 times 3 will give you 3. Then you have your what? 1 plus 3 will give you 4. That is 4 over 2. Or minus 1 plus 3 will give you what? Will give you 2. That's 2 over 2. Then 2 in 2, 1, 2 in 4, 2. So you're left with 2. Or 2 over 2 will give you 1. So the answer, which are the roots of this quadratic equation, is what? Is actually 1 and 2. And if you remember vividly that the last time we solved using quadratic formula, we got what? We got 1/2. If you have any question, feel free to let me know. If you have any question regarding this, feel free to let me know. Thank you. Keep learning, keep reading. Bye.